NADF welcomes you to the Prosperity Podcast, where inspiration meets innovation. I'm your host, Brian Davey, and we're delving into the heartbeat of economic prosperity in Northern Ontario. Join us as we bring you dynamic guests, sharing ideas, stories, and news that fuel the growth of Indigenous businesses. From success stories to cutting-edge strategies, we're your go-to source for cultivating prosperity in the heart of the North. Get ready to unlock the potential of Indigenous entrepreneurship. This is the Prosperity Podcast, because when we grow together, we all prosper. Let's get started. Welcome. Today we're going to be talking with Ajey Meekis. Ajey Meekis is our account manager here at NADF in our Thunder Bay office. And today we're going to be talking about side hustle. If we get more time, we'll get to talk about common mistakes startups make near the end. So let me start by saying this is a Prosperity Podcast. It's a recent type of podcast that we've been putting forward as NADF. And today we're going to have Ajey, like I said, and we're going to talk about side hustle. How are you today, Ajey?
Doing great, Brian. How are you doing today?
Excellent, excellent. Maybe you could start by telling us a little about yourself and how you got here and a little bit of a journey so the listeners can know who you are.
Let me take you on a journey then, a little bit of storytelling. I grew up in Thunder Bay. I'm originally from Deer Lake First Nation. Went to school here, went to Lakehead University, majored in finance. Worked at CIBC for a little bit after my graduation. I decided I wanted to switch it up a little bit, see what's out there. So I actually went to OSCE for a little bit, and then the opportunity popped up to come to NADF. So I kind of just jumped at that, obviously supporting Indigenous prosperity, and it's exactly what I wanted to be doing. So I'm super happy to be here.
What was the educational background again that you went through?
Yeah, I went to Lakehead University, did the business commerce program there, and I majored in finance. So pretty much NADF is right up my alley and pretty much what I wanted to do.
So that's a 2 or 3 year program?
4 year program.
4 year program,
Yeah.
wow.
Yeah.
Okay, good. So you must know something a little bit about a side hustle. You have a side hustle yourself, first of all.
Do I have a side hustle? Not really.
No?
NADF keeps me really busy with the travel into different communities. You know, we're very busy, pretty much year round. So no side hustle for me, but who knows? Maybe something will pop up in the future.
Great, great. Maybe you can start by explaining to our listeners what a side hustle is.
Yeah, absolutely. So a side hustle is essentially something you do in addition to your main employment, or it might be something you do as a hobby. So I know a good example is a lot of people like to do crafts and artwork. So beading is a big one. Seeing quite a few applications kind of come in for that type of thing. Yeah.
Great. So most people go through life with one income, one source of income, and it's their job, right?
Yeah.
Usually. And so a side hustle is something, correct me if I'm wrong, it's another source of income above and beyond your current income as an employee. Why are there more people looking to do more sources of income instead of relying on one?
I think it has to do a lot with the cost of living nowadays, right? Inflation is going crazy right now, so there's a lot of expenses that are kind of going up, whether it be rent, food, a lot of these other things. So I think subsidizing your main income with another side hustle is really a good way to kind of subsidize that income and make sure you're meeting all your obligations. And plus, it could be for leisure as well, whether you want to be saving up for a vacation, maybe buy a home, that type of thing. So it's pretty much just an extra income to make sure that you are meeting all your obligations. And some people kind of start out as a hobby too. Like I said in that beading example, it could just be something, passed down from generations. Could be something that you just enjoy in your free time. And an opportunity may arise to make money from that. Another example is like a podcast. Maybe somebody has a sports podcast and it starts growing, and you can kind of make a little bit of ad revenue that way. There's a few different ways and reasons people start up these side hustles, and those are just a few.
So is it more of a passive income or is it an active investment?
I would say it's more of an active investment. There are a lot of things you can do as a side hustle. Property management is another one that you could do, but it really depends on what you want to get into and how active you want to be with it.
Yeah. One of the things that I'm involved in as a side hustle is real estate investment. I own 25 rentals, housing rentals, and it's considered a passive investment. I'm not a property manager, although I do think sometimes I'm venturing into that area during my weekends and when I'm not here at work.
Yeah.
But it's worth my while. It makes a lot of sense. It does some of the things that you're talking about. It provides you other sources of income. So, I mean, if a person wanted to get involved in a side hustle, how would they go about doing it? Is there something that they need to be passionate about, or where can they go to get advice on side hustles? Like they want to make more money, but they're not sure how to do it or how to go about it. Can they come to you at NADF, and would you be able to provide that type of advice? And what are some of the questions you would ask or suggest, answers you would suggest, or advice?
Yeah, absolutely. I would say the passion, if you are actively involved, absolutely, right? This is something you're doing as a side hustle in addition to your workday. So if you are actively in it, I would definitely recommend something that you're passionate about, because as we all know, after a long day at work, some people get tired. You got other obligations, whether it be kids, hobbies, that type of thing. So I would definitely recommend be passionate about your side hustle. And then in addition to that, some of the questions and support we have here at NADF, absolutely reach out to me. I would love to hear about your side hustle, hear about where you're going with that. We do have microloans available for some of the financing options here. And we also have our Women in Business program, where side hustles are allowed in the grant contributions. So if you want to take advantage of that, absolutely reach out to me. Some of the questions, as far as side hustles, one of the main ones is, do I have to register my business? And if you're operating under your own name, you don't have to, but if you have a business name that you want to keep as your own and don't really want to get into any copyright infringement, I would suggest registering that business name. It's a fairly simple process. A lot of people think it's over the top. You got to be in touch with a lot of people, but it's pretty much going to the ontario.ca website and registering your business name. You want to make sure you search it up just to make sure you're not taking somebody else's. But yeah, that would be like the main one I would say a lot of people ask is, do I need to register?
Yeah, and similar to that, I don't know if you get asked, you probably get asked this one, where do you have to incorporate your side hustle, or is this under your personal name where you take it to a certain level and then eventually incorporate, or you incorporate it right off the get-go, or what would be some of the answers to those questions?
I would say incorporating, that would be a big commitment. So there's 3 different structures. So you obviously have your sole proprietorship, your partnership, and then incorporating. I would suggest, if it is a side hustle, going with that sole proprietorship, unless you are operating under a partnership, then you go that way. It's just a lot simpler than incorporating. And yeah, you can do it right when you start up, especially if you aren't operating under your own name. And even if you are, you can, absolutely. Kind of just make sure you do register that business name and you are using it as yours, right? So
right. So the expenses that you would incur in starting up your side hustle, I'm assuming that you need to track those expenses, because they're, I would think, tax deductible, or can be used at tax time when you do your returns. If you're doing it personal, not incorporated. So how important is bookkeeping in a side hustle, and what does one do to make sure that they track their expenses and their revenues? Is a simple Excel spreadsheet sufficient, or is there other types of software that they can use in a side hustle?
Yeah, absolutely. I would say that's probably one of the most common mistakes we see, people kind of neglecting their bookkeeping, because when you do apply with us, we do require some financial statements just to make sure that we have an idea of how the business is doing. Like you said, Excel spreadsheet, that works fine, especially if you don't have too many expenses. If you can keep track of it in an Excel spreadsheet, I would say it works great, right? But there are some other applications such as like QuickBooks, other things of that nature. And we do have a bookkeeper. Her name is Wendy. She is our in-house bookkeeper. So if you have any questions regarding that, you could reach out to me. I could connect you to her, and she's had tons of experience in the bookkeeping side of things. So she'd be able to answer your questions on that, like what type of applications are good for a starter as a side hustle. We she even recommends, well, maybe not recommends, but she can give you advice on keeping it and tracking it by hand, like in a ledger. So there are tons of different options. It's pretty much what works best for you. But absolutely, I would say bookkeeping is very important for the side hustle.
Yeah. So in the profit you do make, is it, this might be a bit of an unfair question, but is it a capital gain or is it an income? How would you treat profit in a side hustle?
Profit, that would be considered income. So
Okay.
it would go on your personal tax returns, especially if you are operating as a sole prop or a partnership. So yeah, it would be considered income.
So you can't use capital gain losses against that income. It's a little different there, eh?
I don't believe so.
Okay, all right. Well, that's good. I mean, there's some folks that probably want to know because I do have some friends that have this capital gain losses on their notice of assessment.
Mhm.
They ask the question often, "Can I use this against my income?"
Yeah.
I says, "No, I think it's just strictly for capital gain." But find a good. We're not tax advisors. Get a good tax advisor and find out the right answers. And that's another question that. How important is it that you find the right team to support you? What I mean by team is those professionals that support your the review of your books or your tax returns or legal questions, or I guess that's you have to have those relationships established, right, with the lawyer and
Yeah, absolutely. It's all about finding your fit. There's tons of different options out there. So I would suggest reaching out to a few people, kind of having those meetings, seeing their perspective on your business, the services that they can provide. Maybe somebody has a specialty in your certain industry. So yeah, I would definitely recommend reaching out to a few different people when you are creating that team around you and making sure that it is the right fit for sure.
Should I be taking my books to H&R Block, or should I be looking at something a little more MNP or something a little higher than that when it comes to a side hustle, when it comes to doing your tax returns?
Yeah, absolutely. I think for a new business startup, H&R Block would be sufficient. But once you're kind of getting into more operating as a full-time business, then I would look at having your own accountant just to make sure that everything is good come tax time.
And then how much revenue do you have to generate? Let's say you're selling widgets.
Mhm.
And how much revenue do you have to generate before you apply for an HST?
Yeah,
Do you have
so
to do that with a sole proprietor? Or?
yeah, once you start making $30,000 or more a quarter or for the full year, then you would have to register for that HST number. And something Wendy actually told me a month or two ago is they'll actually send you a letter of notice for when you do have to register for that HST number.
Great.
So if you're not too sure, they're keeping track, so they will reach out if that time comes for sure.
Awesome. So what are some good examples of side hustles that you're aware of or people should consider? Or I realize you answered the question earlier, but you should be passionate about what you're doing, but what would be some examples that would be worth consideration?
Yeah, absolutely. If it's something you just really need to get going, like something short term, you could always drive Skip or Uber. I know in Thunder Bay we have U-Ride, so it might be a little bit different getting that started. But something like those delivery or rideshare services is something you can kind of get into really quickly. And then in terms of your own passion, it could really be anything that you're interested in. Like I said, that podcast, if you like selling your artwork, you can kind of start there. Or if you enjoy doing yard work, right? Maybe you kind of start up a landscaping business in the summer or something you do on the side. So possibilities are pretty much endless, right? Even in today's digital age, these podcasts, content creation, there are tons of things that you can kind of start with. And I would definitely recommend starting out as a hobby, right? If you like, I like gaming, maybe I start recording myself or start streaming. So there's tons of options and it's pretty much up to your own imagination where you find those ideas.
That's great.
Yeah.
So where would you get the money? If I didn't have much to begin with, let's say I only had $1,000 or $2,000 to put it towards the startup.
Mm-hmm.
What are some ideas on where I can get some money to do a startup or a side hustle?
Yeah, absolutely. I know ourselves at NADF, we do have our micro loans up to $7,500. So that's a good portion of capital that especially get you the startup costs, right? To get you operating, get you started. There's also different grants available, whether it be through the CEDC or T-Bay Ventures. I would definitely start reaching out to these financial institutions and kind of seeing what options are available. I know some, like our ABFP grant, requires that full-time commitment. So it's all about what you're eligible for a side hustle, but there are plenty of organizations that would definitely help you out. Even at Lakehead, I know their Ingenuity, they have an Ascend program for Lakehead alumni starting a business, and you can get a grant up to, I believe it's like 7,500. So first step looking for that financing is just reaching out to these organizations and seeing what they have available, right?
Is there anything that a person should do in preparing their financial health to undertake a side hustle? Is there anything they could do in advance?
I would say, it pertains to your credit. A lot of the startup capital will be through lending, right? So what you want to do is make sure that your credit is in good standing.
How do you do that?
There's a lot of different ways, making your payments on time. If you're a younger person and you're just starting out, definitely getting a credit card, making sure you only put what you can pay off at the end of the month on it, and making those full payments at the end of the month. That's a good way to start and build your credit. Down the road, you start applying for loans, mortgages, that type of thing. But making your payments on time for sure, paying down your debts, that type of thing. I usually recommend that people check their credit report at least once a year, just to make sure there's no fraud, nothing's on there that you don't expect, and just making sure that it is in good standing.
How do you check your credit report?
You can go to Equifax and request your report right off their website.
Oh, okay. So is there a cost to that, or?
I don't believe so, but if there is, it's got to be minimal.
Yeah.
Because it is your own information, so.
How useful is, I see this a lot now where, how useful is it these apps, these bank apps, these online bank apps, they can spit out a credit score. Like you can go to your app and then you can see it, whatever it is, 700 or 600 or what have you. Are those, and they screenshot them and they use that to show their lender or their landlords or whatever.
Yeah.
Are those useful? Are they in line with Equifax? Well, actually, the information I don't know. Yeah, they do come from Equifax, the one I have anyway.
Yeah.
Or TransUnion. So, would that be reliable? I guess.
I would say it's reliable, especially if you are doing it off of like a Big Five banking app, whether it be CIBC, TD, so on and so forth. But it only gives you a screenshot. When you do order your full credit report, it actually has a listing of all your credit files, where the balance is, what the limit is, the standing of that credit facility. So just to get that in-depth information, I would definitely recommend ordering the full thing. But like you said, it is useful just to know the score if you need that snapshot.
Yeah, no, that's great to know, because I think there's a lot of people that are not aware of that benefit that's part of their bank app. Yeah. So what about how important is it to have your own money, your own equity in a side hustle? Does it have to be, presumably they would have some money, but is it like 10%, 5%, 20%, 30%? I guess it all depends on how large the startup costs are, or the cost of your side hustle to get involved, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I would say as a general number, probably around 15 to 20%, just for starters, because obviously you want to have your own equity in the company, showing that you have that commitment, especially to lenders. That's a big thing, showing that you have your own skin in the game to make sure you want to make this successful, right? Yeah, absolutely. So that's a requirement for some of NADF's lending, especially when it comes to grants, is having your own cash equity ready to invest. And that's where, personal financial management comes in, making sure you're saving that money up to have it ready to be invested in the business.
So many of the things that I read are, when it comes to setting up a side hustle, I agree You got to be passionate about it, but also to look for the problem that you're trying to solve, and you have that passion to resolve that problem, or to find solutions and present them to potential customers to resolve that problem. And that's just so key from what I've been reading and listening to. I'm realizing, of course, that's at a larger scale when you're looking at larger business, but that's probably also true when you're looking at smaller undertakings as well, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And something I would recommend if you are starting up that side hustle is, creating a business plan. If you're really serious about it, you want to make sure you have your thoughts on paper. And that kind of brings me to other lenders as well. Once you go to them, they want to see that business plan. They want to see the plans you have for the business, where you can expand, how you're going to be marketing, and the problem that you're solving for your customers as well.
So when you look at some of these balance sheets, pro forma balance sheets, and expense, revenue, and cash flow, when you're looking at 3 years out, or 4 or 5, well, that's a question in itself. How far should you look out when you're doing a simple business plan? Is it a year out, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, 5 years? I don't know. And that's the first part. And the second part is, are there templates you could use, or where you just plunk in the numbers? And because I would assume that some of these entrepreneurs that are fairly new, that want to be entrepreneurs, are not sure on how you would put together a balance sheet.
Yeah, absolutely. As for the projections question, I would say about 2 to 3 years would be recommended, but you got to have a good reason for the growth that you're going to be incurring, right? And that's where the business plan comes in as well, showing how you are going to be expanding. And as for the template question, we have cash flow templates, balance sheet templates that we do give out. If anybody needs any help with that, our business support officer would be able to assist them with that. Kind of go, even line by line. Here's what you put here. Here's how you kind of project your revenues, that type of thing. So we have a lot of support for these new entrepreneurs that are really just getting into the game. And our team has been excellent. And even myself have been learning a lot since I've joined NADF.
Yeah. And the other question I wanted to circle back to, the type of product or service you're going to be offering, and dig deep, a little deeper into that one. A newer entrepreneur, sometimes they think of, what is the widget that I'm going to be creating? There seems to be a couple of mindsets where people are going to love this widget. If I create it, they're just going to love it, and they have no proof. They just think it's great, and they want to put it out there, and thinking they're going to be the next Tesla or Amazon or what have you. But is that a true way of looking at it, though, or should we be more focused on defining the need and solving the problem, and looking at the market that way? Or just taking a gamble on your prototype and just saying, wow, once the public sees this, they're going to gravitate to it, and they're going to give me hundreds of thousands of dollars. I mean, what's the best way of approaching this or thinking about it?
I would say market research. Obviously, even if you ask your close friends, they're going to be very supportive, maybe overly so, right? Telling you have the next great big thing. But that's where you have to kind of differentiate from family and close friend support from the actual market. Right? So they might not be your target market. So kind of getting out there, example, say you're going to be opening up a coffee shop, go visit your competitors, maybe have some surveys that you circulate online. A good way to get responses is having prizes for those, right? Fill this out, give me your email, and I can give you a $50 gift card for one of the winners. So I think validating your idea with market research is definitely key, making sure that you do have a viable product and business model. So I would say market research, definitely vital.
Does that mean actually selling the product to them, or
not necessarily
real buyers?
Yeah, not necessarily. I mean, you definitely want to ask your target market questions and what you want to do. But absolutely, I would say, oh man, kind of lost my train of thought there. Sorry.
Yeah, no, I think I know what you're saying. Yeah. It's making sure that there's actually a need for what you're trying to sell.
Yeah, exactly.
And basically, that's what it comes down to, right?
Exactly.
So, yeah. But we only got 5 minutes left, but I just wanted to cover this very important point as well. Aside from, where people can get in touch with you and all that. But if you, at some point, you're going to find yourself so involved in your side hustle. And what are the points that you have to look out for that say, hey, no, my job now is becoming secondary to my side hustle? Mm-hmm. What are the signals or the indicators that you look for to where you say, I think I'm going to have to make choices here and go for the side hustle is getting bigger than my job?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it comes down to what's the demand, right?
Yeah.
If you're like appointment based, like you're maybe a hairdresser or something along those lines, once you're starting to turn away quite a few customers, maybe that's when it's a good time to kind of look at your schedule, say, look, I could fill up my week doing this, but my job's kind of getting in the way. And that's when the time comes to get to that decision making. You could also do like a cost analysis, say, how much am I going to be making if I do take those appointments? Will it be enough to cover or match my salary that I have currently? And I think that's like the main two things, your time and then how much revenue you're generating. That's where I would say the decision making to kind of jump into that side hustle full time comes into play.
And is selling that side hustle, is that an option? I guess it depends on the types of assets that were part of that business, right?
Yeah, I would say it depends on like your business model, your product or service. If it's the service is kind of centered around you and your qualifications, maybe you can sell your clients to another business in town. So yeah, it's definitely an option. It is really a case-by-case basis, but I would say the door is open for that for sure.
Yeah, and a lot of it is related to the type of business it is. For example, if it's a business based on your personality, or you as a person, you're forefront in business, you're like a podcast or what have you, then it would be difficult to sell that.
Yeah, so, exactly. Imagine like Joe Rogan selling his podcast, a new host comes in. It's not going to be the same, right?
Exactly. So then you got then you have the other alternative. Of course, we have assets where there's no non-personal involvement at all.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
Yeah. Well, great. Well, that's good. Oh, one more question before there was always this other question I wanted to get in there, but is there a different approach when you're looking at larger investments? For example, if you want to buy an existing business that's $2 million, is it possible? Is it at what point where it's no longer can be considered a side hustle? If you're looking at acquiring a convenience store, a tool rental joint, a junk away business, or some other business that has trucks, and all you want to do, let's say, is get the money together, buy the business, put your own money in, and have someone else run it. Is that an option as a side hustle?
Yeah, I would say it really depends on how involved you would like to be. Because, some people build it up from the ground up and then they pass it on to somebody new who they kind of took under their wing. But if you can find somebody who has experience in the industry, running a company, which is very hard to do, I would think that would qualify as a side hustle.
Yeah. Okay.
I believe. I think.
Yeah, no, that's good. Well, I really enjoyed our interview. It was great.
Yeah,
it was a good exchange, and look forward to having you back again in another 12 months and see what more we can learn about side hustles. So we've been talking to Ajey Meekis from NADF. He's account manager here at NADF, and if someone wanted to get in touch with you, how do they do that?
Pretty much go on to the NADF website, the contact us form we have our phone numbers on there. You could reach me by that. But my email, Meekis, MEEKIS, @NADF.org. If you have any inquiries, please reach out. We'd love to speak to all the future entrepreneurs here.
Okay, great. I'm going to put those links below as well.
Yeah.
So, nice meeting you. Have a great, great summer. That wraps up another episode of Prosperity Podcast, proudly brought to you by NADF. I'm your host, Brian Davey, and I've just delved into the heartbeat of economic empowerment in Northern Ontario. If you enjoyed today's episode and want to stay connected, be sure to subscribe, leave a comment. Your support fuels momentum of Indigenous entrepreneurship. Remember, on the Prosperity Podcast, we believe that when we grow together, we all prosper. So let's continue this journey of growth and success. Until next time, I'm Brian Davey signing off. Stay inspired, stay innovative, and let's keep prospering together.